Fans matter, but sports publisher Paul Banks says corporate sponsors call the shots.
Always an arms race. You need the resources. You need the so-called revenue streams in order to attract the top facilities, the best infrastructure, to attract the best players, because if you don't, your other competitors will get ahead of you. It's tradition. That's what they sell. Their brand is tradition, and their fans are very loyal to that. And if you break from that, the fans will feel that you're selling them out and you're not being as loyal to them.
It's a 3-day televised live extravaganza.
This is absolutely the biggest event of the off-season. In terms of an NFL event without football being played, the NFL draft is as big as it gets. Television networks really trip over themselves to get the broadcast rights and to outdo each other and trying to placate the league and trying to get the best deal possible.
Your thoughts on the Fire making that move and then maybe rebranding as well?
Right. The first stone has been cast. They've got out of the lease, but it's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet. So I was at the roundtable with Nelson Rodriguez, the GM, and it was a very spirited one. He was quite evasive on the topic of moving, but that story had come out, and I can't ever remember the time I saw a reporter actually bring a story and show it to the guy while he was talking. But it's an interesting lease in that if the Fire do want to build their own soccer-specific stadium after they go to Soldier Field would be a bridge to something else. They will have to pay the city of Bridgeview going forward if they build a soccer-specific stadium within a 35-mile radius. So if that's your end game, if that's your long-term goal, then you're still back out in the suburbs. So that's kind of confusing. I think the best thing is to go back to Soldier Field, just keep the lower tier open and build up your brand that way. The brand is the most important thing right now because during that same roundtable, Nelson did open up on that quite a bit. And he's admitted that the Chicago Fire, the TV show, is still more popular or more relevant than Chicago Fire, the soccer club, and they've been around longer. And what they're trying to do with people love the badge. I like the badge.
I love the badge.
We like the colors, but you look at that badge, you don't know it's a soccer team, and that is what Nelson said, is people don't know that is, they think it could just be any fire department.
You were right. The brand is not as big as the TV show right now.
Well, I asked him if he was going to go like the Euro route or the foreign route with like FC, Chicago United, all these teams that have MLS names. And so then he said, well, what's your opinion on it? And I'm like, hey, I'm just a reporter. But they are focus grouping everything, and he wanted my opinion for the focus group. And I say, you do need to have something that shows it's a soccer team, but maybe like a lot of MLS teams are SC, soccer club. So maybe you can find a way to put a soccer ball into that badge, and then maybe your Chicago Fire SC. Because like something like Chicago City, Chicago United, Chicago FC, no way, we're passing on those.
You got to pass. So how exciting?
A lifelong dream realized.
Was it writing this book?
The lifelong dream realized. It's got something for everybody. It was a combination of some of my greatest hits. I compiled it off that. There's a travel section, which of course that was fun to do. Travel writing is great. There's a lot of sociopolitical material, so there's stuff for the thinking man, and it's here. It's finally here. My dream is realized, and it's a kind of book you can pick it up in the middle anywhere in any chapter and kind of read from there, or you can just read it straight through. It's like Freakonomics in that way. I mean, there's one chapter of the infield experience one year and the people watching there. There's another chapter on going out in Broad Ripple, going to the Little 500, and we couldn't get tickets because Tony Stewart was there. To me, I think that was maybe my favorite chapter to read and write, because it's the 9 national anthems, all the pomp and circumstance that comes before the race. Jim Cornelison is going to be singing Back Home Again in Indiana. I mean, to me, that was one of my favorites. A lot of the Bears stuff was a lot of fun too. I mean,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Some of the stories that I broke first, like when Otis Wilson said he was going to donate his brain to science, like that made the cut. Peanut Tillman opening up about how he froze when he tried to get into acting, how he was in Sharknado, and he, it's very playfully opened up about how Sharknado, his part got cut. You were at that foundation thing with me. Dick Butkus, awesome interview. I mean, maybe that's one of my favorite chapters, because he talks about the dangers of steroids, but he does it with such hilarious hilariousness. A common thread that I saw from a lot of people who backed me said, I find the story that is not always readily apparent. Everybody kind of zigs and I zag. And I think that's why this book will appeal to a lot of people, is it's not a box score, straightforward kind of thing. It's more timeless, more evergreen. I take it from different approaches. And to see a lot of people kind of said the same thing about that. I mean, I don't hold back. I tell it like it is. And it makes for an entertaining tale.
Well, I kind of wanted to do something that really hasn't been done in about a generation. And I go back to a book that has a similar title, No Cheering in the Press Box, which, is another catchphrase that the life of a sports media person can relate to. And that was more about like some of the golden age sports writers recapping their lives, some of the highs and lows. And what I wanted to do was provide something where you could pick up the book anywhere in the middle and just read the little chapters there, or you could just read it all the way straight through. And I wanted to make sure I covered, obviously there's a lot of Big Ten. Obviously there's a ton of Chicago, as that's where I've lived and worked my whole life. But there's some international, there's some travel stories, and there's a way for just to really have something for everyone. Because they are the first to really popularize and really mainstream the art of over-the-top celebration from a female perspective. When you think about who really took showboating and celebrating to the next level, you got to go back to the U, and you watch that 30 for 30, and you saw how they were going to run up the score on you, they're going to dominate you, and they were going to rub your face in it. And this team is the first female team to really ever do that. And I think that's why the backlash is so strong against them. I think anytime you're an innovator, anytime you do something, when you blaze trails, you do something that other people haven't done, that backlash is inevitable. Well, Sunday could be really good for America because we could have the men's and the women's team both win a tournament within a few hours of each other. But obviously the women's stakes are a lot higher. But no, I agree with you. This women's team has been great for the sports media, and that's why it's reflected in the ratings. The England-USA semifinal actually drew better ratings than the UEFA Champions League final in England, and that had 2 England teams, which is just crazy. And it's this is something that's been with the U.S. women's team all along in the program. I mean, I have a chapter in the book about Hope Solo and how polarizing she was and all the attention she gets, and she made for a perfect villain. And, Alex Morgan, at first, so a lot of people look at her as like, the perfect hero, but you got to remember she's got an edgy side, too, after she got kicked out of Epcot Center a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Forgot about that.
Makes it even more interesting storyline.
You could call her Captain Morgan, considering it was for drinking too much.
Yeah, there was somebody had to take that opportunity to do that.